Well, we played a lot of games in 2020, didn't we?
We certainly did. And
Um,
I'm pretty proud of what we played.
yeah, this was a kind of a landmark year for me as far as like beating games, something that I utterly failed at in 2019. And we have a list here of some of the games that we played and beat, and
hmm
it's an impressive list, I got to say, man.
It's really not bad. Considering our sort of mantra for this show and our sort of tagline is, two adult gamers try to find time to game. They
Yeah.
have no time for gaming.
Yep. Yep.
Considering that that's kind of our slogan, I'm pretty proud of what we achieved. It looks like you have a little bit more than I do.
Mm.
Um, but this was never a competition. We just wanted to play games and try and get some stuff beat.
Yeah, and it's been a ton of fun too. I not everything on my list they're not all games that I beat, but the overwhelming majority of them are games that I beat. So I'm pretty proud of that, and I have a pretty good sampling of stuff, and I'm sure I'm missing things. I know there are games that I've sampled that I ducked in and just kind of bailed out on, or maybe I put aside for later. Um, but like I'm really proud of the mixture of indie titles and AAA titles on here. I feel like I hit a lot of notes with some of the stuff. And as I'm thinking, like I forgot about other games that I played too. So I'm like literally adding stuff as we go. But anyway, what were some of the standouts for you?
I think this one goes without saying, and probably will come as no surprise to most of the listeners. But God of War,
Mm.
PS4,
Hmm.
that was just groundbreaking for me and for a lot of folks. And even though it's a 2018 game, it was something I finally got to this year, pretty early on,
Yep.
um, and absolutely cherished it. So I would say that one is one of my standouts. I certainly have more.
Yeah. This was 2020 was the year that I finally dove into The Last of Us as a franchise, and the 1-2 punch of The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, I think still resonates with me, and I still find myself kind of getting into like this internal struggle with how I feel about The Last of Us 2 as a game. There were parts of it that I absolutely adored. There were parts of it that I really struggled with.
hmm
Um, we had a wonderful episode where Epic Outro joined us, and we broke it down. I think we spent almost 2 hours talking about the game, and we dove into details, and we still forgot shit because there's just so much in there. But man, like I am so excited about the possibility that awaits with the TV show that's coming out whenever that
hmm
is. Like I think that has some amazing potential, and I absolutely consider myself a fan of the franchise now, whereas I really didn't give a shit, 9 months prior.
Same. Yeah, I just it looked like one of those AAA games that I didn't want to get involved with. I mean, it looked good from a visual perspective,
Yeah.
but because it was sort of zombie-ish, I was turned off, and I
Mm,
shouldn't have written it off that quickly because the
mm,
first game, which I did play this year and beat, man, talk about tremendous.
yeah.
It's a powerful story, and I mean, we certainly know the rest, but um, yeah, I can't believe that we both got to it so late.
Yeah. Well, we both had our reasons, but we both also stopped at the same point, which is very bizarre. And I think if we had just spent a little bit more time with the first game, even another half hour, I think both of us would have gotten hooked because, that's really what it took. Like I just had to power through
hmm
that one section and really
hmm
just kind of get to the meat of the story. And I was hooked. And I know that you had, some uncomfortable feelings around playing The Last of Us 2.
hmm
If you ever find yourself in the mindset where you think that's a game you can go back to, I cannot recommend it enough. It's a challenging game in a lot of ways, but I think it is worth your time.
I still think that there's a possibility that that could happen.
Mm,
And I think it was a bad idea, I think, for me at the time to jump from one to two
yeah.
that quickly.
Hmm.
Considering that time in my life this year was pretty tough because it was like sort of I wouldn't say the beginning of COVID, but it was just when things were just like really setting in for everybody. And
Yeah.
people were realizing like, oh shit, this is really gonna be here for a while.
Right.
And I think they're probably some of the worst games that you could play this
Yeah.
year. If you're kind of sensitive to just kind of some of those life sufferings, you know.
Yeah, that was kind of a bad 1-2 punch, I think. Maybe you should have thrown something lighthearted in there, like I don't know, solitaire or something.
Yeah,
I'm like
on
looking
like
at your
some
list. I'm
old
like,
Windows computer.
well, like I'm looking at your list of games that you have here, and it's like all this like deep indie shit,
Oh yeah.
Shadow Colossus or Last Guardian. Well, Vanquish would have been a good one to play, but
Yeah.
yeah, Dave, Epic Outro suggests Doom Eternal, and like that was the game that I struggled with because that came out right when the pandemic started, and uh, I was home from work and there was stuff going on at work with people. There was somebody at work that tested positive, and like my mind was just in a terrible place. And I struggled with that game. I actually did need to step away from it for a little while, and I'm glad I did. I was able to
Hmm.
circle back to it, and it was like the bane of my existence. But I'm glad I finished it.
Yeah, I think it was a moment where I just saw too many like dead bodies in the game and
Mm.
too many throats getting slit. I was like, all right, that's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, Last of Us is definitely a gory, visceral game, but the story that it tells is very powerful, and I think the gore and that horror is necessary to tell the story that they are, because what those two ladies go through is absolute hell,
Hmm.
and I don't know of an easier way for them to tell that tale.
Yeah, and I think what they have to deal with, like these. I can't even remember what they're called now. They're not zombies. Oh, the runners and the
Mm.
clickers.
Yep.
Basically, all of the enemies that they have to encounter, they have to take them down that way. It's
Mm.
not like they can just be like, you know what, here's here's like an inoculation that's just going to put you to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no humane way of doing this. They really have to get visceral, and I think visceral is the key word with that game,
Yeah. Yeah.
story wise and gameplay.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is emotionally draining, especially by the end. Uh, what else you got? Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I mean, powerful game. Granted, it was kind of that 40-hour slog that Joe refers it as. Um, and it was. I mean, it
Yeah.
got to the point where I think, when I did my review, it was clear that I was ready to be done with the game, and I was pleased and relieved, I would say, more than anything to have finished it.
Mhm.
But the game itself was really, really good, and I was extremely impressed with it. I've been
Mm.
seeing a lot of people rate it as game of the year for this year, and I can agree with that. And it's made me kind of want to play it again. I was even
Wow.
shuffling around with some themes again recently, like last night. For whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want this Ghost of Tsushima theme anymore because Atlas keeps jumping on the soundbar trying to swat at the leaves. They're they're blowing in the wind because it's a dynamic theme. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? This little fucker. So I loaded up the themes and I was like, oh, I forgot I had all these like really nice FF7 remake themes. And
Yeah.
some of them have like music and some are more dynamic than others. And I was like, you know what? I really fucking like this game.
Mm.
Because now that that slog is over and I can, I'm past that sort of suffering stage now, I would absolutely play it again. But
Mm.
I think sometime next year, I would say, look, well into next year, I would probably fire it back up. Like if they announced like the second installment and that was going to come out, say, end of next year,
Hmm.
I would fire it up like summer
Yeah.
so I could kind of get like ramped up for it.